Another live stream. Today we're back in Minecraft, and I'm not gonna be talking much because I have a thing here set up. It's gonna be playing creepy stories. I'm not actually gonna be telling these. These are by a YouTuber I watch. I have his name down in the description if you wanna go check him out. It's Jordan Persegati. Persegata? I don't know. I think that's how you say it. But yeah. Here you go.
This video may contain offensive language or be frightening to some viewers. Viewer discretion is recommended. The thing in the yard. My friend Anna called me and asked if I could take over a babysitting job for her. Anna had the lead in a school play and she had to go to dress rehearsal. "I can't babysit," she moaned into the phone. "They'll give my part away if I skip rehearsal." Anna and I both knew that the theatre teacher, Mr. Olsen, wouldn't actually give her part to someone else if she missed rehearsal. Anna was just overly dramatic about everything. Her dream was to go to a nearby college that was well known for its TV and radio programs. The college had its own TV station, and Anna was convinced that if she could get a part in one of them, she'd be discovered by a big Hollywood agent. I had never met the family that Anna was supposed to be babysitting for, but I agreed to take the job. "You owe me big time," I told her as she gave me the name, address, and phone number. The Callahans were new in town. They had a formal event to go to, and they needed someone to watch their 7-year-old daughter, Emma, for a few hours. They were willing to pay me $50, and they promised to be home before midnight. Emma was a sweet little girl. She had curly blonde hair and big blue eyes. She was just learning to read, and after her parents left for the night, she settled in on the couch with a Junie B. Jones book. Emma was very adamant that I not help her in any way. "Mummy says I have to sound it out," she said matter-of-factly. After finishing the book, I put Emma to bed and then went back downstairs to watch TV. I found a nature documentary about meerkats. Hey, it's either meerkats or Kardashians, and I started to watch. I was only 15 minutes in when the TV suddenly lost its signal. The screen filled with white static. I was flicking confusedly through the channels when Emma came into the room, dragging along her blankie. "There's a monster outside my room," she said in a small, shaky voice. Her face was pale, and I noticed that she was shivering. I turned and glanced out the window behind me. The waning moon was half hidden by clouds, but it was still light enough for me to see the backyard. The Callahans' backyard was large and bordered by a thickly wooded area. A knee-high stone fence separated the yard from the woods. There was a small plastic playhouse in the center of the yard. Something was standing next to it. It stood on 2 legs, like a person, but seemed too tall and gangly. Its legs were abnormally long. I didn't get a good look at it as it turned and darted into the woods, stepping over the fence as if it wasn't even there. I didn't want to believe that I'd seen it. Heck, if Anna hadn't started screaming, I think I would have been able to convince myself that I had just imagined it. I grabbed Emma, pulling her close to me and trying to shush her. My mind was racing, but I knew one thing. I needed to call the police. The TV suddenly flipped back on. The screen showed Emma's empty bedroom, as if a camera had been set up outside her closed bedroom door. A low, gravelly voice spoke. "We are coming." The voice was soft and raspy, as if whoever was speaking was trying to whisper and shout at the same time. I jerked away from the television, scooping Emma up into my arms as I did. She was screaming again, burying her face into my shoulder. I remembered seeing a landline in the den, so I ran back into the next room. I picked up the phone, but didn't hear anything. Whatever was messing with me had somehow cut the phone lines. Emma clung to me, pressing her face into my leg and screaming hysterically. Above Emma's shrill wails, I heard a faint tapping sound coming from behind me. I turned. The thing from the backyard was standing right outside the window. It had stooped down and was peering through the glass. Well, I think it was peering in. It didn't have a face. It had a blank greenish-grey concave, as if its face had been removed with an ice cream scoop. It was completely and totally smooth and featureless. I didn't pick Emma up this time. I grabbed her wrist instead. With my free hand, I grabbed a poker from alongside the fireplace. I ran, pulling Emma along with me. I had to find a safe place to hide Emma. A place without windows that thing in the yard could look through. We wound up back in the living room, and I opened up the closet door. The closet held neatly labelled boxes containing toys and stuffed animals. There was just enough space for a frightened little girl in the back. I pushed Emma into the closet. "You have to be brave," I told her. "You have to stay in here and be very quiet and very brave." I didn't really have any sort of plan. I could hear something scraping against the side of the house. The thing in the yard was scratching at the house, clawing at the siding. My mind was racing a mile a minute. I couldn't seem to hang on to a solid thought. Are you freaked out?" stammered Emma. "It's gonna be okay," I told her. "Stay here and be very quiet." I think she was about to say more, but I shut the closet door. I turned to the sliding glass door that led to the backyard. The thing was walking away from the window. It was coming towards me. It lumbered along slowly, moving in sharp, jerky movements. Its arms swung by its sides. They looked absurdly short in comparison to its legs. Without thinking, I opened the sliding door. The thing stopped, tilting its head at me quizzically, as if it hadn't expected me to come out of the house. I ran towards it, swinging the fireplace poker as hard as I could. There was a thick crunching sound as the poker collided with the thing's legs. The legs buckled immediately, snapping backwards. The thing toppled, shrieking and squealing as it fell. It landed hard on what I guess was its rear end. It flailed its arms at me, but I swung the poker again. I felt it collide with the spot where the thing's face should have been. The thing stopped screaming and toppled backwards, slumping onto the ground. The backyard suddenly lit up with light. My heart was pounding and adrenaline flooded my body. For a brief moment, I thought that the sun had come up. I stumbled back, blinking. I dropped the poker without fully realizing it. People were pouring out of the woods, shouting and screaming at me. My legs gave out, and the next thing I know, I was sitting on the ground. A woman wearing jeans and a t-shirt was screaming at me. She had a set of chunky yellow headphones dangling around her neck, and what looked like a handheld radio clipped to her belt. At first, I thought it was a Walkman. She was waving her arms and shouting, even though I could hear her perfectly. I couldn't seem to understand her. "What have you done?" she screamed. "It's a show! It's a show, you idiot!" Someone pulled the yelling woman away from me. I looked around. The backyard was full of people. Some of the people were holding cameras and boom mics. Anna was there. She was crying. Great heaving sobs racked her body. I remember thinking that she should have been at play practice. A man offered me his hand and pulled me to my feet. The man explained to me that a bunch of seniors at the local college were filming a TV show for their final project. It was a prank show, like that one on the Sci-Fi Channel that used to air years ago. Someone would call in and suggest a scary prank to play on a friend or family member. The prank would be videotaped, and then the whole thing would be broadcasted on the TV show. They had actually filmed a few episodes already. One showed a boy peeing his pants when a creepy-looking clown popped out of his locker, and another showed a girl screaming as a masked man with a rubber machete chased her out of a parking garage. Anna had called in and pitched a prank to be played on me. She would send me to a phony babysitting gig, and the guy, dressed like Slender Man, would terrorize me. Emma and the Callahans were all actors. Anna had thought that she could impress the students, and that they'd let her have a small reoccurring role in the show. The man I attacked with the poker was named Jude Plaskett. He had been walking on stilts. My first blow had broken the stilts, but left him basically unharmed. My second blow put him in a coma. He didn't wake up. There was some talk about filing charges against me. Luckily, that never happened. I had been terrified out of my mind, and had been convinced that a monster was about to kill both myself and the little child I was supposed to be babysitting. Jude's family wound up suing the college and his classmates. This happened a little over a week ago. Anna still won't talk to me. She's furious that I ruined her shot at TV fame. I'm pretty mad that she set me up for such an awful prank in the first place. I can't sleep at night. I keep thinking about the horrendous crunching sound that poker made when it collided with Jude's face. And later, I keep thinking that there's something in my backyard. I keep waking up to the sound of bushes and trees rustling. But when I go to the window, I don't see anything. I don't know what I keep expecting to see. I don't really want to. The purple balloon. It's times like these that make me wish I could just run away and never look back. I want to scream, but I can only cry internally from all the stress my family causes me. My father and stepmother always go at each other like a couple of lions fighting over a piece of meat. There is no peace, and sometimes I wish I could just crawl into a hole and never come out again. I desperately pray to God that every day would get a little better, but it never does. Nothing ever gets better. The only thing I look forward to anymore is sleep. The constant oppression and neglect from my stepmother only increases with every passing day. Sometimes I can't help but lie in bed and wonder if my family or friends would even miss me if I went away. Would people cry or just move on? The only love I remember feeling was from my father, but lately things have taken a turn for the worse. The fights have gotten more violent, and there were days I would find him crying, praying for a miracle to happen. As it grew dark out, I realised I'd been sitting in my room listening to them for several hours. I couldn't hear them arguing anymore. The damned grating noises of the clock above me only contributed to my frustration. That eerie silence heightened my anxiety until I couldn't take any more. I got to the door, and before I could get to the doorknob, it swung open. It was my dad, beaten, broken, and bruised. I gazed up at his tired face as I slowly walked towards him. Then and there, I decided enough was enough, and I lost all rational thought as I grabbed his hand. I gathered my strength and pushed my way past my stepmother. The rage plastered on her face made me panic as I tugged my father to his car. I got him into the passenger seat and scooted over to the driver's side. I frantically locked the doors as I looked for my father's keys. I could hear my stepmother growl words as she cursed out my name. "Alexa!" she yelled out in a hoarse voice. My only thought was to get my father away from here as fast as I could. I panicked as I struggled to find the keys in the little light I had. A sudden loud bang on the driver's side window sent me into a state of shock as my eyes snapped back to it. I screamed in terror as my stepmother slammed the baseball bat against the window again. It must have been enough to finally snap my father out of his haze. He suddenly grabbed me and shoved me off the seat. He had grabbed his keys from the glove compartment and started the car before speeding off, leaving a trail of smoke and skid marks behind us. My panic only heightened as we flew down the road. I pleaded with him to slow down, but he only sped up more. I could feel the car starting to spin out of control The sudden thrashing shook us both violently before I heard glass shattering. The seatbelt that had kept me secured broke, and suddenly the world went black. I felt so isolated. The cold, hard ground beneath me sent goosebumps along my skin as my eyes snapped open. I was gripped with a sudden feeling of pain as I sat up. My head was pounding from the hard landing. I tried to steady myself and realized that all I could hear was the hollow sound of the car alarm. There wasn't any other noise. Even the cool breeze that touched my skin was silent. I slowly brought myself to my feet as I looked around. Something was wrong. "Dad?" I called out, but there was no answer. I hollered out again. Still no answer. I started to scream over and over again to such an extent that my throat began to hurt, only to hear silence. I had to stop before I not only lose my father, but my voice as well. I was worn out, and I couldn't stop rubbing my eyes. The more I did, the more the light around me started to fade into darkness. I felt uneasy as I opened my eyes. I was suddenly blinded by a single spotlight, and everything around me seemed to fade away. I could hear a faint jingling sound echo around me that was followed by laughter. I could feel my anxiety welling up again as I called out, hoping it was my father. "Hello? Dad?" I waited several minutes, but there was no reply. It only seemed to confirm my worst fear. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end as an overwhelming presence seemed to appear behind me. I turned around quickly, and there, in colours of blue, magenta, and teal, stood a towering jester. The jester carried a mischievous, lazy demeanour. He looked bored and quickly took notice that I was standing there. He didn't say a word. The only sound was the faint jingling of the bell that was tied to the ends of his blue hair. I couldn't break my gaze away from him. His flamboyant, vibrant features brought out so much life and made him stand out that much more. The jester came closer to me with a grin that I wasn't sure I could trust. I didn't understand where he came from or how I came to be in his dark oblivion. Without a word, he started to do tricks that would awe anyone, one of which made a purple balloon with a smiley face mystically appear in his hand. He looked to me again with a smile as he offered it to me. I didn't take it from him. I didn't know where he came from, much less what he was. I drew back slightly as my thoughts returned to my father. I had to find him. I didn't have time for this. I turned quickly to move away, but he was there in front of me again. He looked disappointed and shook his head as he offered me the purple balloon again. I couldn't stand the eerie silence that was lingering between us. "Who are you?" I asked, after gathering my courage. The jester still didn't say anything, but pulled out a deck of cards. I asked him again, and this time he pulled out a card with a letter on it. It started to dance around him, and with every following question, he would pull out another card. I glared at the cards and spelled out the name he presented to me. "Candy Pop?" I asked. The only response he gave me was a wide grin. I didn't know why, but each time he smirked, it sent chills down my spine. I could feel something was wrong, even if I didn't know what it was. He started doing tricks again, and this time he made the big purple balloon disappear. I watched as he made a blue lollipop appear, then another and another, until he held 3 of them. I wasn't sure what to say or do, so I only watched in silence. He took my hand and placed the lollipops in my palm and closed his hand around mine. Once again he made that same purple balloon reappear and backed away slightly. He crouched with his back to me, and all I could hear was the sound of plastic being stretched quite a bit. When he turned around, he held a flower-shaped balloon. Candy Pop's smile was sweet and kind as he offered me the balloon again. I wasn't sure why he was so persistent for me to take a balloon. Maybe he was really just trying to befriend me. After a moment, I finally decided to accept the balloon. I examined it before gazing up at Candy Pop. His expression had changed from that kind, sweet one to something sinister. I quickly backed away and hugged the balloon to my chest tightly. I started to panic as my body began to levitate off the ground.
Okay, everybody, I'm really sorry about that, but I just need to go help with something right quick. Anyway, let's continue.
Higher and higher. I couldn't stop myself from floating further into the light above. What is this? I whimpered as I realized I couldn't take my hands off the balloon. It felt like it had attached itself to my skin. The light above me grew brighter until all I could see was Candy Pop waving goodbye to me. I could see his shadow now, and it sent a cold chill over me. The shadow showed devilish-looking horns and a tail. When I tried to look at his face again, it was distorted. Multiple whispers surrounded me, and I felt my head spinning. I closed my eyes tightly, wishing that whatever it was that was happening would stop. Alexa! Alexa! Wake up! Alexa! I could hear my father faintly calling out to me. I felt so cold, as if I had been dead. I was frightened and embraced myself so hard that I popped the balloon without realizing it. I opened my eyes slowly, and the bright light that had been overhead slowly focused into a street light. My father was kneeling next to me, checking me over to see if I was alive. Almost immediately, I started to cry and tried to hug him. Before I knew it, we were at the hospital. The doctor said it was a miracle we had both survived. As much as it hurt, deep down, I was glad we were both far away from my stepmother. 3 months have passed since the accident, but I can't seem to shake the feeling that something is still wrong. I'm happy that we both got away from my stepmother and can start over again. The rain outside my hospital window has really made this feel like the beginning of something new. I have to hide my surprise though, as the doctor enters without knocking. He was probably back to check on my progress. I smile to myself as I watch the doctor's back. Once he faces me though, my smile quickly falls. He was holding something in his hand as he quietly spoke to me. You popped the last balloon I gave you, but do not worry, Alexa. I got you a new one. Jeff the Killer.
Okay, guys, I think I'm gonna end this live stream here. So yeah. See y'all in the next video or live stream. Peace.